What's going on, everybody? Welcome into this live post-game edition of the Pack-A-Day podcast. Packers fall to the Lions on the final play, game-winning field goal by Detroit. Hell of a ballsy decision by Dan Campbell to go for it on fourth down there, especially being stopped on the previous fourth down play. But that's the way the Lions play. That's the way Dan Campbell coaches. You sometimes live by the fourth down. You die by the fourth down. And we saw a little bit of both of that, but I think Detroit certainly will take the benefit of all the fourth down opportunities that they had in this game and took advantage of really all but one of them. The game swung a little bit in Green Bay's favor when they missed that one, but I think it paid off more often than not for the Lions going for the multitude of fourth downs that they did in that game. Game that could have swung in, I think, a variety of different directions. A lot of good from Green Bay, a lot of things that need to get cleaned up. Defense wasn't quite up to par in that one. I know people are going to blame some of the officiating too. Certainly injuries played a major role. You get to a secondary that's without Evan Williams and Javon Bullard and Jair Alexander, and it's definitely going to have some pain points, right? Edgerrin Cooper being out at linebacker, I thought was pretty huge in this one too as that game went on. Isaiah McDuffie's made some pretty big plays over the past couple of weeks, specifically in the run game. Man, they picked on that linebacker group in coverage all day long. Not too dissimilar to what Miami did over the middle of the field, but Detroit just spammed it and went over and over and over and over. And anytime they needed a play, they went to play action or they went to attacking those linebackers and just had, acres of separation. And you add in on top of that, when they tried to go man-to-man and bring pressure, you were stuck with, kind of the Keisean Nixons, the Eric Stokes, the, Carrington Valentines matched up on some really good Detroit wide receivers. That was not an advantageous matchup for Green Bay. And, Detroit's offensive line, for the most part, did a great job of especially picking up blitzes. And they screened Green Bay to death, too. And really were, they were a step ahead on a lot of the play calls on offense. Green Bay could never really get a foothold. There's a couple drives earlier after the first touchdown drive. I think they got, 2 or 3 really good defensive drives in after that. And then pretty much Detroit's just stayed a step ahead of Green Bay for the majority of the rest of the game. Again, some good stuff here and there. That fourth down stop was huge. Obviously, the interception by Keisean Nixon. There was definitely some positives as well. But to me, people may not like to hear this. I don't really care, quite frankly. That was an awesome football game. It was an awesome football game. It doesn't ultimately matter all that much. They weren't going to win the division anyway. They're going to have to go on the wild card. They're going to have to probably beat Detroit in the divisional round. That game, like I said, could have swung in a variety of different directions, whether it be on some penalties that could or could not have been called, whether it been on some plays that Green Bay could have made that they didn't, whether it's a couple plays that Detroit made that they, did not make, or throwing a pick to Keisean Nixon on that play. That game can swing in a variety of different ways. That was just a really awesome football game. Detroit came out on top. And I know that people don't like this either. It's a great football team in Detroit. They lost one game all season for a reason. They're on top of the NFL for a reason. They're at top of every team's power rankings for a reason. Green Bay went into their house with a lot of injuries. Obviously, Detroit had a crap ton of injuries too, so I'm not using that as an excuse. But they were toe-to-toe. Could have won the game. They didn't. Detroit won. Tip your cap. They have Green Bay's number right now. They have every team's number right now. They're the best team in football. And they proved that again today. Green Bay will likely get another opportunity to face them, hopefully, if things go right in the first round of the playoffs and they get that divisional round game after hopefully winning in the wild card round. In all likelihood, they'll go to Detroit in the divisional round, and we'll see this matchup again. I can't wait for it. It's going to be super exciting. This was everything that I wanted it to be from a heavyweight fight, from a big-time game, back and forth, momentum swings all over the place. And yeah, there's definitely things, like I said, you would have wished Green Bay could have done better. They didn't. Detroit did. They come out with a win. Now it's back to the drawing board. Hopefully the injuries aren't super serious. Obviously, Javon Bullard goes out. Evan Williams goes out. I think LVN came back. Sean Ryan came back. But that secondary clearly a little bit banged up. They're going to need that a little bit of extra time before they get to their next game against Seattle in Seattle on Sunday Night Football, another primetime game. Let's get to some super chats here. If only Goody had guts to trade for someone at the trade deadline, could have used another corner like a Greg Newsome. To me, that's not the difference in this game at all. Greg Newsome, I know he came up with an interception off a tip ball this past week. He's been bottom of the league in, basically all the statistical analysis by PFF and everyone else on the season this year. I'm not defending, the continued Eric Stokes experimentation and just putting him out there over and over. But to me, that's not the difference in this game overall. I appreciate the super chat, but there's things that Green Bay could have done that they did not get done in this game. And I don't think this comes down to, I don't think this changes one iota if Greg Newsome is on this team, quite frankly. Yeah, I'm sure they would have probably liked to, maybe explore the corner market a little bit more. It was Marshawn Lattimore who was traded, who has not played a single snap yet in Washington since that trade, since they gave up all that draft capital for him, not a single snap. And Tre'Davious White was the only other player that was traded at corner at the deadline. So it's not like there was a ton out there that they could have got done. Matt Straka, Hope Halfley stews on this all weekend. Terrible. Yeah, again, it wasn't good enough from the Packers defense. I thought that Ben Johnson was ahead of Jeff Halfley in this one for a good chunk of the game, the majority of the game, if you will. Detroit's offense is really freaking good. And you add in on top of that, Edgerrin Cooper, Javon Bullard, Evan Williams, and Jair Alexander, and all those guys being out in this game. And it definitely makes it a lot harder. You go into the game and you sort of, we talked about what poison do you want to pick and what do you want to stop? But for the most part, I haven't looked at the stats yet. Thought for the most part, they held in pretty darn well against the run. Maybe I'll eat my words and maybe it's worse than I thought, but 3.3 yards per carry for the Detroit Lions in this one. They ran 34 times for 111 yards, but only 3.3 yards per carry. Thought they hung in there pretty well. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 5 catches for 43 yards. Like that's acceptable, right? It was just, you have all of those fourth down conversions that just extend drives for Detroit, kind of over and over and over again. They go on that 11-play, 70-yard drive, which had, 3rd and goal on the 7, which was a really tough one, but they go on an 11-play, 70-yard drive to begin with, 3-play, 2-yard punt, 6-play, 12-yard punt, 6-play, 29-yard field goal. And then the backbreaker one was the 12-play, 70-yard touchdown drive right before the end of the half when they get the 4th and goal from the 2-yard line. That was a backbreaker on that one. You get the interception to start the second half. Then you get another 13-play, 70-yard touchdown drive where, again, they get a 4th and goal from the 3. That's a backbreaker. You get a 4-play turnover on downs. Then you get a 10-play, 70-yard touchdown drive, 11-play, 53-yard field goal drive. These were just long drive, paper cut drives by the Detroit offense. Again, you look at it. If you would have told me this box score for Detroit, other than the fact that they were able to run 34 times and really kind of stick with the run, if you would have told me that Montgomery was 14 for 51 and a 3.6-yard average, that Gibbs was 15 for 43 and a 2.9-yard average, that Laporta went 5 for 54, that Amon-Ra St. Brown went 5 for 43, neither of them having touchdowns, that Jared Goff threw an interception, I would have said I like Green Bay's chances of winning that game. There was positives, but Detroit used their ball control offense. They went for it on 4th downs. They were super aggressive. They never let their foot off the gas. And even when they failed on the 4th down and Green Bay took the lead, they didn't let it deter them. They went right back down and kept the foot on Green Bay's throat and basically were acting like they had the lead the entire time. It's a really effing good football team. It just is. Like sometimes the other team is better. They were tonight, and it was very, very close. It was an awesome freaking game. An awesome freaking game. It's unfortunate Detroit came out on top. Tip your cap. I don't know what else to say. To be honest, can't be mad about it. Ballsy call by Campbell. You can be mad at things. You can be frustrated at things. You always want to see Green Bay come out with a win. I understand that aspect of it, but that's a baller call by Dan Campbell at the end. This is the thing that I hate is like, he's a genius when it works. He's an idiot when it doesn't work. Right. Yeah. There's not a talk show on earth. There's not a radio show, a talk show, a Stephen A. Smith, a Stick Bayless, anyone else that went to bed. If they didn't get that 4th down conversion, everyone is eating Dan Campbell alive. And he gets it, and he's the biggest genius in the world. Like the only thing that I hate is that we're just, merchants to the result. And I think that part of it is stupid. It worked awesome because he got the 1st down. If Jared Goff stumbles there, doesn't get that handoff away, and Green Bay's got the ball with an opportunity to go kick a game-winning field goal on their own, or that game goes to overtime instead of, potentially kicking that game-winning field goal right there. That is a awful look for Dan Campbell, right? And everyone's going to be talking about it for days. And as soon as they miss it on their own 30-yard line and it's a 4th and 1, oh, Dan Campbell's an idiot. Can you believe this guy? Like, he doesn't know when to stop, and he's just going to get – that's who he is. This is who Dan Campbell is. And you live with the good and the bad. And he's either a genius or an idiot. It's not – you can't base it on the result, right? Either if he's a genius when they failed it on 4th and 1 too, or he's an idiot when they got it on the 4th and inches on the, on the last drive. Like, you have to pick it one way or the other. You can't just choose, well, when it worked, he's a genius, and when it didn't work, he's an idiot. It doesn't work that way. So it's one or the other. He's aggressive, and either you love it or you hate it. I love it. I love the way that he goes about it. I didn't hate that they, I'll put it this way, right? Detroit's ball 4th and inches on their own 30-yard line, and they've got the opportunity to kind of go down and really, put the foot on the neck of the Packers. Think of it from the Packers standpoint. What were you thinking at that point? Did you want Detroit to go for it, or did you want them to punt it away? I know for me, I wanted them to punt it away. I don't want them to go for it here. I know that if you get it, you're going to get the ball in their 30-yard line, but I didn't want them to go for it. I'm going to just punt the ball. I'm like, I'll take the ball on the punt. Please don't go for it. Same thing on that final play. Did I want them to kick the field goal, or did I want them to go for it on 4th down, knowing that they could potentially get the 4th down there or kick the game-winning field goal there? I wanted them to kick the field goal. I wanted Green Bay to get the ball back. I didn't want them to go for that 4th down, even knowing that it could have, again, cost them the game right there. I wanted nothing to do with that 4th down play. So I think, to me, that's an aggressive way to call the game. I love it. It worked out, and you tip your cap. But I hate the idea that when it fails, he's an idiot. When it works, he's a genius. It's one or the other. You can't have it both ways. Aiden Yang, if Goff's knee touches the ground, is he down? No, he's not down. It's not college. If somebody would have touched him when his knee went down, yes. But no, he can continue to hand that off in that situation. They got anything they wanted on their throws. Horrible refs making questionable and straight up missed calls all night doesn't help. Heartbreaker, to be honest. To me, it's going to be either it's a heartbreaking loss. There's no two ways about it, but they're either going to learn from it or this is who they are. And Detroit is a degree better than Green Bay right now. Not a ton. I don't think a ton at all. I think they're two very talented teams. They're two of the best teams in football. I mean, those are the two of the top 5 teams in football right there. We saw it. We saw them go back and forth, exchange haymakers, go round for round, and Detroit came out a hair on top. But right now, Detroit's the better team. Green Bay has to take that next step to get a little bit better, to come into Detroit if they get that opportunity by winning a wild card game, to go back in Detroit and get that win next time. And that's what you have to do if you want to be a great team. I said all week, you want to be the man, you got to beat the man. Right now, the man still has the title in Detroit. Green Bay wasn't able to bring it home. And they're going to get, in all likelihood, and again, fingers crossed, if everything goes according to plan, hopefully Green Bay gets that first wild card win. And assuming everything goes chalk, they would play Detroit in that divisional round game. It would be an epic matchup, and I'm excited for it. And again, it's unfortunate Green Bay couldn't come away with the win in this one. Doesn't really affect too much of it. It takes the division completely out of things. They're a wild card team at best now, but that was likely going to be the case anyway. So now you go back to the drawing board a little bit. You figure out where your deficiencies were. You figure out what you need to do to overcome, and you get ready for the playoffs. The next, obviously, 4 weeks where you have to continue to play good football and learn how to get better. And then when you get them again in the playoffs, what do you have up your sleeve? What can you learn from this game that can get you over the hump next time? Because Detroit's played you twice now, and they beat you both times. So do your work to get another shot at it. Go back into Detroit, and then take that title from them, and then go on to the championship, NFC championship game, Super Bowl, and there on out. That's the job the rest of the season. They've got 4 games left in the regular season to play, their best football, get back on track, and then hopefully, I shouldn't say that, play their best football come playoff time. But really, really fun game in this one. Eric from Wisconsin. The Green Bay fan base is ridiculously dumb. 99% chance of playoffs, win or lose. Calm down, children. Fan is short for fanatic, right? I get it. I get the passion. The reason that I get to do what I do and talk Packers, and why we have 1,200 people that are here to listen to this, is because everyone's passionate about it. I absolutely love that. I love that this fan base lives and dies by every play and every call. I think sometimes we need to step back off the ledge a little bit and understand that this is an awesome game, and it's 2 really good teams. Green Bay didn't come out on top on this one. They have work to do. Like I said, it's going to be my main talking point over and over. They're going to have to go back, and they're going to have to get things better. And you kind of knew that going in. You know that this is not a finished product from Green Bay yet. We saw that again today. The offense early in the game did the defense no favors. And then later in the game, the defense did the offense no favors. We've been talking about complimentary football. There wasn't a ton of complimentary football. There was the stop on 4th down that led to the touchdown, right? There was the interception that led to the touchdown. There was a little bit there, 3rd quarter, early 4th, that kind of got them going in the right direction. But every time the offense got the lead, the defense gave it right back, and just wasn't cohesive enough in this one. But I love the passion from Packers fans. Never going to be upset with that. I totally get it. A lot of season left, 4 games left to get it going in the right direction. And then, like I said, I think they're going to see this game again. I hope we see this matchup again. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be really, really fun, hopefully in the divisional round, depending on how things go in the playoffs. Why were we gouged in the middle of the field so badly? DBs, linebackers, Detroit getting everything in that area between both and in the screen. Yeah, they ate against Green Bay's linebackers. Miami did the same thing for a good chunk of that game. Now, I do believe part of it was Green Bay saying, we're going to take away the run game. We're going to be aggressive taking that away. We're going to take away the outside passing game, making sure that Jameson Williams and Amon-Ra St. Brown don't get those big explosives down the field. And we're going to have to live with some stuff over the middle of the field. And we know they're going to attack Isaiah McDuffie and Quay Walker and some of those guys, but like we can't stop everything. And that was their concession. Very much the same that it was against Miami. Shut down the outside wide receivers, stop the run, make it so that they can't get those big explosive plays. You know, you're probably going to get picked on in the middle of the field. They were picked on the middle of the field. You hope for some deflections or a linebacker making a read and picking off a pass. And they just, outside of the Keisean Nixon play, which was a little bit more, I would say, kind of to the outside, if memory serves, they didn't get that. And, you know, I think Isaiah McDuffie, that's not really the situation that you want him in. You want him more as your 2-down linebacker, more run-stopping linebacker. You would have really liked Edgerrin Cooper in there on a lot of those plays, get a little bit more speed, athleticism, and coverage ability. Unfortunately, you don't have him. Eric Wilson's not a great cover guy. Isaiah McDuffie, not a great cover guy. You know, hindsight, maybe they could have put in a Tyron Hopper or something just to give him a chance, but I don't really think that that was ever in the cards. I don't think they're ever going to go in that direction. So to me, it was just some bad matchups and kind of what Green Bay was, you know, not conceding, but understanding that, hey, they may get some yardage over the middle of the field. Maybe we can force some fumbles in there. Maybe we can get a tip ball and interception, whatever it might be. Just didn't have the luck that they needed in that regard. And Detroit ate it and feasted upon them. And it's been a little bit of a weakness when it comes to coverage from those Packers linebackers. And it was in this game again. Justin Curie, I know he got an interception, but am I the only one who thinks Nixon is an absolute liability? You got a third down, target Nixon. You're certainly not the only one that thinks that. I see a lot of Nixon hate on the timeline. And here's what Matt LaFleur said to Larry McCarron. Now we've got to earn the right to come back here. It's exactly what I'm saying. You should have that opportunity again if you win in the wild card round, right? And go back there and have the opportunity to play them again. But to go back to your question, I mean, let's put it this way. Nixon in this game is serving as your de facto number one corner. If Keisean Nixon is your number one corner, you're not in a great spot. I did an episode 2 weeks ago, I want to say, on that the fact that the Packers failed at corner. They put a lot of eggs in different baskets, but in different baskets that all had a ton of risk. They put an egg in the basket that Jair Alexander would be able to stay healthy. He has not been able to stay healthy. And he has shown that for the past 3-4 years. And they thought, you know, that he could maybe stay healthy. He is not. They thought that Eric Stokes could come back, be healthy, and play like he did as a rookie. He has come back. He has stayed healthy. He has played like he has the last 2 years, and he has not been a good corner. They put faith in that Carrington Valentine would take a significant jump and be able to be a legitimate, really good starting corner. Now, I think Carrington Valentine's been fine. I don't have any major issue with Valentine. I think he should be the starter out there, but he hasn't. We can easily make the argument he has not taken a big jump. They thought they made the bet that Keisean Nixon could come back and be a legitimately, you know, good to maybe even really good starting corner, specifically in the slot. They paid him as a top tier slot corner. I think the kick return ability certainly played a factor into that contract as well. They paid him as a pretty big time slot corner. He's been okay, but it certainly has probably not paid off to that level yet. They bring back Corey Ballantyne on a 1-year, $2 million deal. I don't think that's really anything like to write home about. I don't think they really made a good or bad decision there, but he's kind of your back of the roster corner. And then they only took Kalen King in the 7th round and didn't really invest anything else. If there was any true hope that maybe somebody was going to be able to come up out of nowhere and be that next really good, they didn't really invest anything into that. So every one of their bets, Jair would stay healthy. Eric Stokes would get back to playing well. Nixon could be a really good starting corner. Valentine would take a jump. Somebody else not named any of those guys could potentially make a jump. None of those things paid off. Not a one. My thing on Nixon, if you have 2 really good corners and 2 really good safeties, right, Evan Anderson and Xavier McKinney, Javon Bullard, maybe in the slot, or maybe even somebody better, and Jair Alexander and Keisean Nixon's your 5th guy of your 5 defensive backs, you can absolutely live with that. If he's your number 3 corner out on the field of 3 corners, you're probably good. You can find matchups that Keisean Nixon can work on. You can maybe give him a little bit of safety help, have your other corners do kind of the heavy lifting. You absolutely can live with that. And he came up with a huge play in this game. Arguably the biggest play of the day for the defense came from Keisean Nixon. But if he has to be your de facto number 1 or probably even your number 2, He's just not in a great spot. And that's not Keisean Nixon's fault. He's probably what you would in an ideal world have as your number 4 corner. A unbelievable special teams guy that you can use as a kick returner, at times as a punt returner, that you can use as a gunner if you want to. You could even use him on offense in a pinch. You can use him in the slot. You can use him as an outside corner. Him as your number 4 corner. You can use him in dime. You're totally fine with him in dime. If he's your number 4 corner, you feel awesome. You feel awesome. If he's your number 1 corner, that's not where you want to be. All right. So, and again, that's not Keisean Nixon's fault. He shouldn't have to be in that position where he's your number 1 guy, and partially due to injuries, partially due to other guys just not playing well. He's there. I think he's battling. Again, I think he's mostly fine, but that's not the matchup. Amon-Ra St. Brown versus Keisean Nixon one-on-one is not the matchup that you want. Amon-Ra St. Brown's going to win that more often than not, but I will also say, I don't think this game was lost in any way, shape, or form due to just Keisean Nixon. Right. So yeah. Is that where you want him to be? Probably not. You don't want him in that number 1 spot, but I think you get more than get by with him. Just wish he was more your number 3 or number 4 corner, which is really where he was kind of supposed to be going into the season. It just hasn't worked out that way. Where was Reed? I think Detroit, I have to obviously go back and watch the tape, but I think he was very much a target of Detroit in trying to take him out of the game. And again, what I'll say here too is, it's not like Green Bay had a lot of trouble putting up points in this game. They put up 31 points. The other thing too is Jordan only completed 12 passes in this game. Green Bay's offense was more, big play, or, they got the ball in short fields from Detroit, and a couple of those at the interception and the turnover on downs that they were able to turn into points. Jordan only 12 of 20 in this game. When you only have 12 completions, there's not going to be a lot of other opportunities out there. Right. And Jaden Reed, unfortunately, only had 1 target. He's usually the guy that they make sure they get involved. They couldn't in this game. Again, my guess is Detroit was very cognizant of him and trying to take him away. Despite putting up 31 points in this game, I would very much make the argument that it never really quite felt like Green Bay was in a rhythm offensively. And I think that has to do with a variety of different factors. I think Detroit's makeshift defensive line, and I'm being very kind there, outplayed Green Bay's what is usually very good offensive line in this one. I did not have that on the bingo card. Now, again, kudos to Green Bay for finding a way still to put up 31 points in this game, but it never really felt like they were totally in sync on offense. Never really felt like they had their identity. Didn't really feel like they certainly never got the running game going the way that they wanted to. Now, I don't think they really even got into their offense really. It just felt like they were pressing early, and then it felt like they just couldn't connect on some of the more simple stuff. It was a weird, disjointed game. And then you finally go 4 for 4 in the red zone. And then you got the opportunity to get the pass interference by Watson, have to settle for a field goal to tie the game rather than to take the lead. And you end up where you end up, and Detroit gets the 3-pointer for the win at the end. I think that's why, you only had 12 completions, disjointed on offense. I don't think they were great on third down in this one would be my guess. Green Bay third downs, 1 of 5. Yeah. They were 1 of 5 on third down in this game. So when you don't continue drives, you're not going to be in that rhythm, and you're not going to be able to continue to stay on offense and feed all of your playmakers. And you end up with a day like Jaden Reed of not having any catches in this one, which is of course disappointing. Hard to take this team all that seriously when they're 0-4 against the 3 best teams in the NFC. I know this game was close, but got to win one of them. They have one more game against Minnesota on the road. Certainly Seattle on the road will be a tough test for them as well, especially coming off a game like this. It's a emotionally draining game. Thankfully, they have a little bit of extra rest in between. I understand your sentiment, though, Alex, of like, hey, at some point you got to beat some good teams. And I think wins against the Texans, to some extent, the Cardinals, there's some other ones in there that are, fine wins, right? But if you really want to be considered serious, like, the one thing I've pointed to all year, Alex, and to your point here, Green Bay is going to have to win four consecutive games against really good teams, all either on the road or in neutral locations, right? There's not going to be a home game. There's not going to be an easy game. They're going to have to win 4 straight really tough games, all on the road or in the Super Bowl in a neutral location. That's a tough grind. I have not seen a Packers team yet this season that has shown me that they could make that type of run. I'm not saying they can't. I'm certainly not saying they can't. I think they can, but we have not seen it yet. And if you do want to be that sort of team, then winning games like this against the Detroit Lions is kind of what you need to do. I said they'll get another opportunity against Minnesota to get a big win on the road. Seattle, to some extent, is a nice, there's no question, that'd be a nice win on the road, not to the level of Detroit, right? But they got work to do. And maybe they're saving their best for last, and maybe they can make that epic 4-game run and play their best football at the end. But we have not seen proof that this team can go on a 4-game streak against really great teams when they have yet to your point, kind of win against one really good team, right? But a lot of season left, still room to grow, still reasons to get more and more hungry and more pissed off that they lost this game, and more pissed off that they've gone 0-2 against the Lions. So yeah, this is still a young team that's learning how to win. I know nobody wants to hear that, but they're going to have to find those ways. And this is, by the way, this is part of that process. Detroit went through this as well. And this is why they're a little bit more further along in the maturity level. And I'm not talking about like emotional maturity. I'm saying the matureness of their franchise right now, of where they are with their core of their team. They've gone through some of these heartbreaks and these tough losses and the questions of can they beat good teams. They've gone through that already. This is kind of part of the process. And Green Bay got supercharged through that a little bit quickly last year by making that run at the end, going into the playoffs, beating Dallas, losing to San Francisco, getting some of those experiences. But these are the experiences that these teams need to go through. The 96 team that won the Super Bowl had to go through 93, 94, 95. You can't beat Dallas. You can't win the big game. They're never going to be able to beat. It took them getting beat in the playoffs multiple years, getting more and more hungry, getting more and more mature, learning their lessons from that before they were finally able to do it and win it in 96/97 in January of 97. Same thing with 2010, right? They had to go through 2008, 2009, the tough, heartbreaking losses in the playoffs. The one to the Cardinals is the one that certainly comes to mind where, you get the face mask and it's off of Rodgers' foot, etc. They had to go through some tough losses first, and they had to learn their lessons and that stuff. It doesn't just happen overnight. And then 2010 rolls along, and they've learned some of those lessons. They went through a ton of adversity that season, went through a lot of injuries, play their best ball at the right time, get hot at the right time, and go win a Super Bowl. But it doesn't just happen overnight. These are things that you kind of have to go through. And nobody ever wants to experience the growth. They just want to get to the top of the mountain. More often than not in life and in football and everything else, it doesn't work that way unless you're super rich. In which case in baseball and in life, then it can usually just supercharge you to the top. But outside of that, and in a mostly fair playing field, which the NFL genuinely usually is, where everyone has the same level of draft compensation and money that they can spend and everything else, it takes a lot of that growth and that adversity that you have to go through to kind of get calloused and learn what you need to do to win in this league at a high level. Green Bay, not quite there yet. They still need to kind of go through that. Apparently they're close. I really think they're close, but it's going to take a little bit more time, and hopefully they've learned their lessons now and that this is the time come playoff time, but we'll see. And I get your point, Alex. They're going to have to go through a very rough stretch against some really tough teams and go 4-0 if they want to reach the promised land. It's a tough task. It's going to be a very, very tough task. We'll see if they're up to it. Love is playing a lot better. I thought there were some plays he could have made. Obviously misses the Tucker Kraft touchdown. I don't think that one didn't come back to haunt them because I think they got the touchdown on that drive anyway, but missed that throw. I thought he was a little bit jumpy early, just not maybe totally calm and composed, but he definitely came back, played a big game, had some big time throws in this game. That throw to Watson where he avoided Jack Campbell on the blitz and then threw just a perfect pass, outstretched fingertips to the Lions defender, and Watson's able to get that one. He came up with some big time throws, led him to a drive down to tie the game at the end. Wasn't enough. I think there's things that he can still do better, but definitely came up with some big time throws and played better as the game went along. That's for sure. Steely Field, Detroit bullied us in the middle of the field all night long. Some worrying signs on the defense, but overall we played way better than last time. Improvement for sure. A weakness being exposed over the last couple of weeks in the middle of the defense. I think so. Hopefully getting Edgerrin Cooper back. Hopefully Evan Williams and Javon Bullard aren't out for any significant period of time. And hopefully they can get those guys back. Jair Alexander being back would definitely help. And I think what people fail to realize too, is when you get Jair on the outside, then you are maybe a little bit more cognizant to, or like more willing, I should say, to bring a Xavier McKinney as a robber or Javon Bullard or Evan Williams as a robber in the box and play that extra guy in there, take away some of that middle stuff. Against teams like Miami and Detroit, you're trying to play a lot of too high safety to not allow those big plays, give your outside corners that doesn't have Jair Alexander out there a little bit more help. What we're hearing, right, is that the Packers don't have the corners to compete. Like Keisean Nixon isn't it. And, Eric Stokes isn't it. that they don't have the linebackers in the middle, right, to cover and things like that. But it's like, but Jeff Hafley was terrible. Well, if he doesn't have the corners to cover on the outside, he has to keep the safeties over the top. If he keeps the safeties over the top, he can't have that extra safety in the middle. If he doesn't have that extra safety in the middle, those linebackers that we know, especially Isaiah McDuffie, you can't cover, are going to get abused in the middle of the field. If you drop extra guys back, now you're not bringing a blitz or bringing a pressure. Jared Goff has all day to throw, or you're not being stout enough against the run game where those linebackers are playing back rather than coming forward, which is going to get you gashed by Gibbs and Montgomery. Number one, this is the tests and the trials that a Detroit Lions offense puts you through. And number two, there's some weaknesses that are on this team right now, partially due to injury, that Green Bay is going to have to get figured out. And there's not a perfect solution. I'm not saying Hafley was great in this game. Like I said, I think Ben Johnson was ahead of him for the majority of the game, especially with a lot of those screen calls. It felt like a lot of times Hafley was calling blitzes. Ben Johnson had a counter to it. Just felt like he was a step ahead, but he's also playing a step behind because there's certain things that he has to do because he's got an arm tied behind his back because there's certain things that his guys just can't match up in certain coverages because of a lot of the injuries. No Jair, no Edgerrin Cooper, no Evan Williams, no Javon Bullard. Definitely leaves you a lot more susceptible, and it kind of again ties your hands behind your back with some of the things that you want to call and just can't get to because you have to really make sure you've got those two safeties over the top and aren't allowing those explosive plays. The armchair Packer, my grandma's 97. She should replace Stokes. Man, how are her hips? Are her hips good? You need oily hips at corner. 97's tough. You got the hips of a 97-year-old. As Shakira once said, the hips don't lie. It could be a rough going for her, but yeah, Stokes still not being able to get that pass breakup. I thought for a second he had that pass breakup, but it was just a drop. So no pass breakup, still going over 1,000 snaps now since he's had his last pass breakup. I am proud of this team, Wesley. Thank you for the positivity. I love it. I thought they really battled. I thought there was a really phenomenal game. I said it third quarter when I think Green Bay was up at the time, maybe. Two awesome teams, and one of them was going to have to lose. Such is life. Green Bay came on the losing end of this one. I think Detroit was the better team here. I do. I don't think I'm too out of bounds by saying that. I think Detroit, if you were grading the fight, if this was boxing and you were grading the fight, I think you would probably award this on a technical decision, or I don't even know how boxing works. So forgive me if my words are wrong here, but I think you would probably award this one to Detroit on points, but it was a well-fought game. Could have gone in either direction, and proud of how Green Bay fought back. Could have had it, didn't have it. Kudos to Detroit. They were, like I said, I think they were the better team in this one. Not by a ton, but they were better. Credit to LaFleur and the offense, though. Yeah, late, yes, but early was not pretty. And two of their touchdown drives were certainly aided by the defense getting them the ball in plus position, right? So this team looked good when they were playing complementary football. They looked not so great when they were not playing complementary football. And I think there were moments where the defense looked good. And especially in the second half, turnover on downs gets Green Bay in great field position. Everything looks peachy. And then on other times, offense really rough early going in this game, just could not get any sort of rhythm. And that really set up the defense for failure kind of early because they were just giving the ball back to Detroit over and over. When Green Bay was actually getting stops on Detroit, then their offense couldn't take advantage of it. So just, again, never felt quite fully all together. Thought there were some really good things the offense did. Thought there were some disjointed parts. Thought there were some things that the defense did well, but definitely not good enough on the whole when you're allowing 30 plus points. Even if it's against a super powered Lions team, 34 points. I said the litmus test today was 24. If Green Bay allows Detroit to get to 24, I feel pretty good that Green Bay's going to have a chance to win. They would if they scored 31, right? If they keep them around 24, that would have been a good game. Anything under 24 would have been great. Anything after 24 would have been tough. Anything over 30, and to me, that's a losing performance. And they get to 34. That, to me, I don't care who it's against. That's going to lose you the game more often than not. Kudos to them for getting the turnovers and setting Green Bay up for some success on those. But you got to find a way to keep them under 30. That's got to be the goal going in, and Green Bay could not do that in this game. LaFleur's script, O-line were really bad to start. I totally agree with that assessment, Nick. Probably the assessment I maybe agree with the most so far from our unbelievable super chats here. Thank you so much for the super chats. We have a ton, so probably have to go through these a little bit quicker. But I totally agree with you that the offensive line got their face punched very early and often in this game. The Detroit practice squad defensive line was outplaying Green Bay's starters, who have been pretty darn good all throughout the season. disappointing to see that. And I agree with you that I didn't think Matt LaFleur had his fastball going early in this one. I like the play action call early, the potential shot play. Would have liked to have seen them establish Josh Jacobs a little bit earlier. And I get you know, sometimes when you want to establish Josh Jacobs, you maybe take that shot play early to just remind them of, hey, back up a little bit so that you get them playing off a little bit more early on. So then you can run the ball more effectively. If you don't show that you can hit those deep balls down the field, and those safeties start creeping up more and more and more, and you get more players in the box. So I get, hey, wanting to send the message right away. We're going to be coming after you deep. You better be aware to hopefully open up that box a little bit more. But it did feel like they just could not get into that rhythm early. And I do think that is partially on Matt LaFleur and just maybe needing a little bit better of a design early in this one. I think the offensive line struggling to really probably set that game plan back even a little bit more. Casey noticed a lot of McDuffie blitzes tonight instead of Quay. What are your thoughts on Hafley using McDuffie as the blitzing linebacker in obvious passing situations instead of Quay? I think I can answer this pretty easy for you, Casey. McDuffie couldn't cover. Quay could. Anytime McDuffie was in coverage, where was that ball going? Pretty much at number 58. So if you've got two linebackers on the field and one has to stay in coverage and one has to blitz, you can't keep the one in coverage that can't cover. So I'm sure he would have loved to have blitzed Quay Walker too, right? And that's where I think, not having Edgerrin Cooper in this one really hurt. Because if you want to blitz Quay, then you've got Cooper back in coverage. You can probably survive that, right? And vice versa. If you want to keep Quay in coverage, well, now you've got Cooper as a blitzer, who's a dynamic blitzer. So losing out on Edgerrin as a blitzer and losing out on Edgerrin as a cover guy really exposes you. Isaiah McDuffie's been really good on rundowns. I have no problem with what he's been doing. I think he's put some really good stuff on tape, but on passing downs, it's been an issue. So what do you do in those situations rather than, keep him in coverage? All right, bring him, because you don't want him to get picked on anywhere, right? So you bring him as the blitzer. Didn't really come through, I don't think, much as a blitzer. Certainly not what we saw from Quay a week ago, but you couldn't blitz Quay and keep McDuffie back because he couldn't hang in coverage. So you had to blitz him, basically. John, so proud of the boys. We will meet in the playoffs and we will beat them. Let's go Pack, John. I love the positivity. Lions had more injuries than us, though. Agreed, Connor. No disagreement there. Like I said very early, like that, they're a massively beat up team and they overcame it. And I thought what they did on the defensive line was massively impressive. O-line awful outside Tom and Jenkins. Even Tom and Jenkins had their moments. Tom got bull rushed a couple times early in this game. Jenkins had a big penalty. So the offensive line did not bring their A game. Their piss was not hot in this one. 0 pass rush when not blitzing. Gary's just a guy. We are lucky to win a wild card game with this defense. Let's give it a little bit more time. RJ, again, this is a really good Detroit offense. This Detroit offense has hung 50 on people. They're number one team for a reason. This was never going to be an easy game. Never, ever, ever. And thought Rashawn Gary came up with a big sack. But yeah, I don't even know how much they brought 4 guys. But the other thing that's tough too is it felt like every time Jared Goff was going back to pass, it was off of play action. And if you guys watch and study the fronts at all, when it's play action, your first responsibility is the run. So you kind of play the run first, and then you see, Jared Goff has the ball. So then you go into your pass rush in your pass rush, repertoire, and then you get in. It's a lot harder that way. It's a whole heck of a lot harder. So when Detroit is constantly in manageable situations where they're going play action and you cannot just tee off on the run, it makes it really, really hard to get home, because you got to play your run assignment first and then try to get to the quarterback. So yeah, I'll have to go back and watch it. I'm sure there were things that you wish were a little bit better from a pass rush standpoint, but Detroit being able to get, kind of stay multiple all throughout the game, even though they weren't running the ball great, and being able to utilize play action on a ton of their pass sets, it really, I think, made it difficult for the Packers to tee off and really try to get after Jared Goff. I thought Rashawn Gary looked good early in this game, seemed to maybe disappear a little bit more in the second half, but I'll have to go back and watch it to see how well he did or didn't play in this one. John Mark Liddell, the only justice of the Detroit Lions going to the Super Bowl would be if they could stop the Chiefs from winning 3 in a row, something the Packers at this point don't seem able to do. I don't think the Chiefs are going to make it there, quite frankly. I think there's a lot of flaws on that Chiefs team. They continue to win. They remind me a lot of 2011 Green Bay Packers, where they only lost 1 game, but you could just kind of tell things were never quite right. And they might get upset at some point. Packers got upset in the first round that year. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen to KC, and KC does have the ability sometimes to be rather pedestrian in the regular season, and then the playoffs come and it's like, all right, let's flip the switch and let's actually, it's go time now. So maybe that happens again, but I do think the Chiefs are a little bit more flawed this year. But We'll see. I think, Buffalo, Detroit would certainly make a phenomenal Super Bowl, but listen, Detroit's going to have to get through Green Bay first, and Green Bay's not going to make it easy on them. Telling you right now. Dustin Wanless, I hate complaining about refs. It means nothing when looking at your record, but man, I thought the Keisean Nixon blitz was the real big one on this one. That one, I can't remember if that was a third or a fourth down or what the situation was there. I'd have to go back and think. There were so many clutch situations and third downs and fourth downs, but the one where Nixon blitzes right up the middle and like clearly just gets grabbed and yanked back. That's a tough one. That's a tough one. Certainly some other plays too, but that's the one that I would have really liked to have seen called in that situation. But to your point, goes a lot of times both ways. You just hope it evens out through the course of the season. More often than not, it's not the referee swinging it one way or the other. Obviously the penalty early on Jordan Love, or hits him in the helmet. Who knows what happens if they get that penalty there? But I still think, again, if we're just awarding this based off of points, which isn't how it works, but I would say Detroit was the slightly better team than Green Bay. I don't think the result in this one was like egregious, right? Like I think if you were to add everything up, you'd say, yeah, it felt kind of like Detroit was about 3 points better in this one. That's what the score ended up being, regardless of some baby crappy calls by the refs in this one, which unfortunately you can't do anything about, and it just is what it is. We witnessed a contender versus a pretender 2 times in us versus Detroit this year. 13 players on IR for Detroit, 1st and 20 at the end, and we managed to choke it away. We're talented and injured, but not ready. Preston, I just disagree. I don't think it's a contender versus a pretender. I think these are 2 very good teams that battled it out until the end, and Detroit was better. I think Detroit is the better team. I think Detroit is the much more likely team to win a Super Bowl right now. I don't think that's any act of fiction or, trying to go too aggressively in any direction. I don't think that's a hot take. Detroit was favored in this game for a reason. They have the better record for a reason. They're favored to be the Super Bowl champs for a reason. Green Bay's a step down from that for a reason. There's still a gap. Regardless of how small that gap is, there's still a little bit of a gap there. And Detroit's on the better end of it right now. That I cannot tell you how many times that can be the case. Green Bay's been on the other side of that, where they've been the better team and they get to the playoffs and they don't win. San Francisco has been that team for how many years now and has not won a Super Bowl. Just because Detroit's really good right now does not mean that they are going to win their divisional round game or their NFC championship game or the Super Bowl. And just because Green Bay right now is looking at a 5th, 6th, 7th seed in the playoffs does not mean that they cannot make a run. This season is not over. There is a lot of season left. I absolutely still think that Green Bay is a contender, but they have room to grow. And they're not the favorites. They're certainly not the favorites. They're probably not in the top, 4 or 5 of the favorites. They're probably around the 6th or 7th, somewhere in that range. And teams like that can go on a run. And do I think Green Bay, if they actually click at the right time, get healthy, play their best ball, do I think they're an unbelievably dangerous team that teams are not going to want to see in the playoffs? Hell yeah. I don't think Detroit's going to want to see Green Bay. And Detroit's not going to be afraid of anyone, period, end of story. But I don't think they're going to be excited about playing Green Bay. I don't think I don't think anyone's going to want to see the green and gold coming to their stadium in that opening round of the playoffs or any subsequent round after that. Green Bay's a really good team, but I still think they're a contender. But to this point, Detroit's certainly a better contender than they are through the 2 games that they've played so far. Eric from Wisconsin, this was like a great heavyweight fight, great game. May I remind everyone of the season, Green Bay swept the Vikings in the regular season, and they knocked Green Bay out of the playoffs. These things happen. Green Bay beat the Giants earlier in the season when they lost to the Giants in the NFC Championship game against Tom Coughlin in that season, and Plexico Burress going off against Al Harris, which we don't need to talk about. There have been a multitude of stories like that where Green Bay beats up on teams in the regular season and somebody gets the best of them in the playoffs. We'll see. It's tough to beat a team 3 times. Hopefully Green Bay's got lucky number 3 when they face him in what could be an epic divisional round game. A lot of work to do to get there, though. What can they do to fix the pass rush? Again, I think this one, I'll have to go back and watch it. I think this one was really a lot to do with Detroit constantly being in play action situations and being able to move the ball, stay in manageable down and distances, and not allow Green Bay to tee off and just kind of get after the quarterback. But Detroit also has a great offensive line. To your point, Tyler, the pass rush has not been great all season long. So this is not like a one-off where like, oh, they struggled today. I don't know. I don't even know that they, how I would evaluate this one off the top of my head, to be honest. Like I need to obviously go and rewatch the game and then watch it on film too. It looks like only 1 sack in this one from Rashawn Gary. Clearly wasn't good enough, but we also know Detroit's got a very good offensive line. And like I said, they had a lot of play action stuff that was on in this game. So going to need to go back and watch it. But It's just kind of more about winning your one-on-one blocks. And there's only so many smoke and mirrors that you can do, and so many fake blitzes and, simulated blitzes and everything like that. You got to win your one-on-one matchups. Green Bay on the whole of the season has not done a good enough job of that. And that's going to be something that they're going to have to do better if they do want to be a contender come playoff time. The short diabetic sucks to lose, but felt like that was a real heavyweight bout. Started slow, battled back, and we're a tick away OPI from being up late. Pack feel close. I love the optimism, short diabetic, and I do not disagree with you at all. How do you feel about our passing attack? Does it feel like we rely too much on Love instead of our receivers to gain yards? I don't think it's that. It just doesn't feel like they've quite been in rhythm for a game yet. I go back to those games at the end of last year where they were just kind of chucking it through the yard and getting wide receivers open, and wide receivers were winning on their routes. It just doesn't ever feel like there's ever anything that's easy enough right now. That, like last year, there was a lot of times, especially in the second half of the season, where they made the offense look easy. And Aaron Rodgers was always somebody that preached this quite a bit. And while I don't always need to hear Aaron Rodgers preaching, the one thing that I did very much agree with him on is, like, when they made, even like Detroit right now, like when offense looks easy, it's not. It is a lot of work to make all those things happen. But there was times last year where Green Bay made offense look easy. I haven't seen that this year. Just doesn't feel like they've quite found that right, perfect formula yet. And I don't know what that is. I don't know exactly what's missing, but I am hopeful they can get there. I like all of kind of the individual parts. I like the way that Love is playing right now. I like the way that Jacobs is playing. I think the offensive line certainly needs to play a lot better than they did today. And I think the wide receivers need to, maybe get a little bit more separation too. But I think in totality, they can easily get there. It just, for whatever reason, just something feels a little bit off. Maybe missing Romeo Doubs is hurt. I don't know exactly what that one thing is, but I just think there's a better rhythm that they can play with. They didn't quite have it today. And even then, like, they're a top 5 offense in DVOA. They put up another 30-point game against a really good Detroit Lions team. Like, they still find ways, but it still feels just a tad bit off. And I still think there's a lot more meat on that bone that they can get to that they just haven't quite figured out quite yet. Matt, smart play callers attack weaknesses. McDuffie, Stokes, Pasty have shown us that they are the weaknesses, and they are trashed all day. Wish Matt LaFleur used the Lions defensive line aggressiveness against them with misdirects and screens. I especially your second part there. I do think there was a piece of that we really see. Did we see us screen in this game? I don't remember. Jacobs, Wilson, Brooks, Kraft. I don't remember one. Maybe there's one, but I don't really remember it. I did wish that there was a little bit more of that. Here's the thing. It felt like Detroit was dictating on defense more than Green Bay was dictating on offense, which is just really weird. It felt very tight going into that game. I don't know exactly why, but it just felt like Detroit was the one that was doing a little bit more of the dictating. And yeah, I mean, in an ideal world, right? Stokes isn't out there. McDuffie's not out there in passing downs. Unfortunately, due to injuries, both those guys had to be out there on pretty much every single play. And that does leave you with some weaknesses, and good on Detroit for exploiting it. Detroit had a lot of guys missing and should have had weaknesses to exploit as well. And Green Bay had a tougher time with it. Tip your cap to Detroit. They did a better job of exploiting those mismatches and finding the weak link along the Packers. ASAP Mamba, can somebody explain to me why play man-to-man on 4th down and have a top 10 explosive player in the league against your linebacker one-on-one to get beat by a simple ass angle route? Yeah, so, I mean, they had 6 guys in coverage on that play. They were playing some man, but they were playing a couple guys in zone. I think they were clearly making sure that they were stacked up against the run. I don't think that they necessarily wanted, I don't know. I don't know if they were, what they were expecting. McDuffie one-on-one against Jahmyr Gibbs in that play. That's just taking candy from a baby, right? I'm not sure how that happened, why that happened. That's definitely one where if I'm Matt LaFleur, I'm asking a couple questions of Jeff Hafley after the game of, like, how did that occur, and how can we make sure that never occurs ever again? I mean, that's, again, you can say, like, oh my God, McDuffie sucks. You can't ask McDuffie to do that. I'm sorry, but, like, you cannot ask Isaiah McDuffie one-on-one with infinite space against Jahmyr Gibbs. And you could see, right, exactly what McDuffie was doing. I mean, Gibbs takes off at basically a full sprint to get to the sideline. And quite frankly, if Gibbs doesn't even run the angle route, he could have just kept running that little sideline route, and they probably just could have hit that, because McDuffie's not going to be able to catch up with him. And McDuffie knows if he doesn't put the gas on right then and there, he has no chance of stopping that route to the end zone, right? So he puts on as much turbo boost as he has in his body, in his being, because he has to. I mean, he has to in that situation, or you're just cooked. You're just going to allow an easy throw into the flat, and you can't anticipate him coming back because you're already beat, basically. So you have to put that on. And then as soon as he goes, it's just a cutback. And that's, you have zero chance. So, you can point to like, oh my God, McDuffie sucks. What is he supposed to do in that situation? You can't put him in that situation to be there in the first place. He's in a absolute no-win situation. Again, they could have ran the outside route. It's a touchdown. He could have run the angle route. It's a touchdown. Just a bad matchup. And that's one that, again, if I met LaFleur, I'm probably asking some questions of Jeff Hafley, how he got into that look on a key play there on fourth down. A sad, pathetic excuse for a first half by the offense and O-line, a worse performance by the refs. I'm sick of the dirty teams always being rewarded for being dirty. Lions are as dirty as they come. I didn't see anything particularly dirty in this game, unless I'm maybe forgetting something. They were aggressive. They were attacking. They were physical. I didn't see any late hits. I didn't see any, Kurt Angle ankle locks or anything like that in this one. But they're a good team. They're physical. They're going to hit you. The refs definitely missed some calls, and I do agree that the offense was way out of bounds in the first half, and just, it really makes it tough that you've, kind of got to play not an almost perfect game the rest of the way, but you're definitely coming and digging out of a hole because your offense isn't playing and firing on all cylinders to start the game. And this has been a trend, right? Down 28-0 to Minnesota, down 24-3 to Detroit. They're down. They go down again. 10-0 in this one. I think 17-7 at half in this one. Too many first half deficits against good teams. It's just going to get you killed. And they've lost every one of those games that they've done that on. It's just too much to overcome against good teams. Wade, thank you for being a member for 14 months. Consider a Pack a Day membership. A ton of extra members only content. Wade, I really appreciate that a ton. Thanks for the shout out, my friend. Touchdowns on fourth down every time. This team, man, they did get the stop on fourth down, but yeah. Detroit's good at them. They're well practiced. They're well versed. They get an extra bite at the apple every time. They're not settling they're not just taking 3 chances at the end zone. They're taking 4. Love the aggressiveness. They're really good at it. And, the one play Green Bay gets misaligned. Eric Wilson's not in the right spot. And then Keisean Nixon's in no man's land because he's got 2 guys. He's trying to cover 2 guys because Eric Wilson's misaligned. So Nixon goes to where Wilson's supposed to be because that's Goff's first read. I think it was the running back in the flat. So he's got to go cover the running back in the flat. That's supposed to be Wilson's guy. And then Wilson's screaming over to get over to the running back because that's his guy. But Nixon had to cover for him because he wasn't there. And Wilson probably should have stopped to stop Tim Patrick, but because that's Nixon's guy, but Nixon had to cover for Wilson. Maybe if you're not aligned to start, you're just in complete no man's land, right? And it's unacceptable that Green Bay's in that situation. I think I didn't go back and look at this, but I did see somebody post it. I think Amon-Ra St. Brown was in the backfield on that play as the running back, and the running back was out at wide receiver. And they came out quick. So Green Bay didn't know how to adjust to it. And with Amon-Ra St. Brown, like you get into these weird, very quick situations of, all right, is Amon-Ra the wide receiver, but he's in the backfield, or is he the running back and the wide receiver is actually Gibbs? And it was a really smart play by Detroit, because if you're Wilson, you're thinking, I've got the running back. And if you're whoever is supposed to be covering, Amon-Ra St. Brown, you're thinking I got the wide receiver. But then you have to make that quick communication. Is Amon-Ra St. Brown the wide receiver, but he's at running back? Or is Jahmyr Gibbs the wide receiver and Amon-Ra St. Brown's the running back? Either way, they messed it up. Eric Wilson wasn't aligned in time, and it allows a easy fourth down conversion. Got to learn from it. Really smart move by Detroit, but it was a very smart move by Green Bay on the previous drive to go tempo on in the goal line situation. Detroit wasn't quite set. They get Josh Jacobs in for a touchdown. Like these are 2 really, really good football teams. It was a fun one to watch. I hope you guys can enjoy that game. I really, really hope you can, because I know like we want our team to win, right? And it sucks when they don't win. There wasn't a ton at stake in that game. There just wasn't. There was not a ton at stake in that game. And man, was that game awesome. It was a really, really fun game. 2 really good teams going toe-to-toe, and Detroit was better. No 2 ways around it. Now Green Bay's got to find a way to overcome that gap. Mike Witt, why no OPI on St. Brown? On a positive note, I think Wicks is officially back. Hopefully Romeo comes back next week. I really wanted overtime. Man, overtime would have been great in that game. Yeah, it sucks that they didn't. Why no OPI on St. Brown? Not sure. Refs didn't see it that way. I guess that's the reason why. Allison, players that are injured, we need to let them go. I disagree with that vehemently, Allison. That does not get you anywhere. That doesn't help you at all. Most hated Minnesotan paying you to ban RJD. Do we have a spammer in the chat somewhere? RJD, just be good. Be good, RJD. I'll try to keep an eye on it. Most hated Minnesotan. I haven't been able to. I'm just in the super chat list because there's so many super chats. I haven't been able to keep an eye on the main chat. So my apologies. I probably need to get to the point. All right, we can put the user in a timeout. We'll do that. RJD's in a timeout. All right. Lions did a good job keeping it third and manageable, but should we be a little concerned about the screen defense? We should absolutely be concerned about the screen defense in this game. I think long-term they can probably figure that out and they can be better for it moving forward. But Detroit saw something in Green Bay's defense. And I mean, this is not hard to figure out, right? Detroit has seen Green Bay's defense be ultra aggressive and come after guys and really show a ton of blitzes as of late, and expected, I think, a blitz heavy performance from Jeff Hafley because they knew they needed to get Jared Goff off of his spot. So they used that aggressiveness against them, something that Green Bay's offense probably should have done a little bit more of, quite frankly. But Ben Johnson's awesome, man. There's a reason why he's considered one of the top offensive minds in the league. It's not just play design, right? Like there wasn't a play that Detroit ran today where you're like, oh, that's something new that I've never seen before. It's knowing every single situation and how to use a defense's, aggressiveness against them, knowing when to utilize those play calls and just trying to stay a step ahead. And Ben Johnson's done a phenomenal job at that. I thought that third down call on that, I think that last little screenplay to Gibbs was awesome. And he's a really good play caller with some really good playmakers. It's really tough to defend him, but yeah, I think they're going to have to clean that up for sure. ASAP, I don't care if there's pressure man, 20 attempts for your $55 million man. You can't block a bunch of third stringers. It's always something with this team. So frustrating. Might be always something with this team. They're 9-4, still a really good team. 99% chance to make the playoffs. Still a good team. Not good enough. Not good enough. The goal is to win Super Bowls, right? They got 4 games in the regular season to start getting trending in the right direction. They've got a really tough playoff path ahead of them, and we'll see what they got in them. It's a really good team. Just not quite there yet. Love your rationality. Andy, you are so awesome. And as somebody who does not like the Dodgers, I appreciate you mentioning how easy it is to buy a championship. Baseball, frustrating. So stupid. So stupid. Like baseball can change all the rules and the bases and the pitch clock and everything else. But if you don't recognize that what makes sports great is the competitive balance, I don't know what we're doing. And I get like teams without payroll have done a really great job in sort of figuring ways to be competitive. And there's definitely an avenue, especially with younger teams being better and the longer contracts for young players and things like that. There's a way, but it still sucks. It still totally sucks. Stupid baseball. The code juice. I don't think this loss is that deep. A few penalties, flip and a fourth down goes our way, and we win this game and the whole season narrative changes. Sure. And again, that's why I think there's a lot of positives to take away from this, but there are a lot of things that Green Bay could have done a whole heck of a lot better in this game too. Like there's a lot of things that they need to clean up. So yeah, I'm with you, the code juice. I think we kind of started that way, right? Like this is a game that could have flipped in a variety of different ways. 2 awesome teams going at it. Green Bay didn't come out on top, but fair to question some of the stuff that happened. Fair to want more from them moving forward. Also fair to understand that they were this close to winning the game, and a play here or there could have easily swung it in Green Bay's favor. And like you said, would have definitely changed the narrative about this team. Such is life in the NFL. Actually excited about this. Losing by 3 with bias officiating is the best outcome in my mind. 13-4 and breaking the Lions' hearts in the playoffs. Here we come. We do need DB depth though. Holy cow. Hopefully Jair coming back. Hopefully Evan Williams is okay. Javon Bullard hopefully is okay, and they can get healthy at the right time. But I like, again, your positivity, Randy. Appreciate you a ton. Thank you for all the super chats, by the way. You guys are the absolute best. Rasul Douglas, he would have been nice to have in this game. No 2 ways around it. I still say I would have done the deal at the time. If I could go back in time now with my hot tub time machine, I would do so and say, hey, just hang on to that guy. Would probably be worthwhile. But at the time, it made sense. Knowing now what we know, it no longer makes sense. Again, such is life in the NFL. Bryce Bernard, Eric Stokes covers like penguins fly. Might be the quote of the day. Might be the super chat of the day. Jack Callahan, thank you so much for that. Also, this team has got to be the most unaware defensive line against screens. Felt like there was a point where they ran 3 straight screens and we fell for all of them. Yeah, Detroit was just a step ahead in this one. Again, like one of the things I talked about when Hafley came to Green Bay is it's awesome when you're going to say that you're going to be an attacking, aggressive, downhill team that's going to get after the ball and be a gap penetrating team. That's awesome. How are you going to do against screens and trap plays and those sort of things that are going to use that momentum against you? I thought I thought in camp, Green Bay did a tremendous job, maybe just because Green Bay's offense is really bad at screens. But I thought they did a tremendous job in camp. I thought they did well early in the year. Today, Detroit saw something. They were definitely ahead of it, and they had an entire screen package and then some ready for Green Bay in this one. Detroit was great at running it. Green Bay was not good at stopping it, and it's something they're going to have to go back to the drawing board with a little bit. Jack still prefers Stokes over CV for matching up with DK next week. I think you mentioned that in a conversation with Justice. I don't know if there's a right answer. I've talked about Stokes having certain wide receivers that I think he can be a little bit better against because he has the straight line speed, right? And DK Metcalf is kind of a straight line speed guy. So I could see them maybe using Stokes on, Metcalf a little bit. Here's the thing, that they continue to use Stokes no matter what, right? So like him and Carrington Valentine are basically just 50-50 corners at this point in their career. So I don't know why I still like CV more than I like Stokes, but maybe the Metcalf one can be semi-advantageous for Stokes, but I'm not holding my breath too much until we actually see it play out that way. Buzzy in season, picked on Wilson and McDuffie with the 5-yard Texas route on 3rd and 4th short over and over. Thought Quay played well. Aesthetically, the D looks better, but getting the same result versus a good quarterback. Yeah, again, I think the injuries really hurt Green Bay in this game. Like I said, I do think Ben Johnson was a step ahead, and I do think this Lions offense is really freaking good. You add those things up, and you get a 34-point performance for the Lions. Not good enough. And like I said, I thought Ben Johnson was a step ahead in this game. He's really good at what he does. Now it's up to Green Bay to, like I said, kind of go back, evaluate what they did wrong. They're probably already watching the tape right now, and they've got now a week and a half to figure out Seattle and their offense, get hopefully a win against them. You got New Orleans, you've got Minnesota, you've got Chicago. This 4-game stretch probably doesn't mean a whole hell of a lot. So they're going to have to find a way to kind of be intrinsically motivated and keep playing out the season, despite being the fact that they're going to make the playoffs and they can't really do anything besides get the 5, 6, or 7 seed. I guess just fight for that 5 seed. Like, you're going to have to find something to be motivated by. And I think that thing has to just be finding ways to be a better football team. It just has to be growth and consistency. That's what they need to find. And I thought there were some things that certainly Ben Johnson, that Lions offense, picked on that defense. Now Green Bay's going to have to find solutions to that, so that because other teams are going to copy and paste it, right? If you don't think Seattle's already looking at what Detroit did against this Packers team, like, they're going to have some similar stuff dialed up. No question about it. Kenneth Walker and Tyler Lockett and those guys, they're going to be ready, and they're going to probably be a variety of screens and a lot of plays over the middle, just like Detroit did today, just like Miami did over the middle of the field last week. So now it's up to Green Bay to figure out ways to stop that stuff and make it that, the next handful of teams that they play against can't do the same thing that Detroit just did to them. How much room for growth does this defense have left, both into the playoffs and into next year? Is the pass rush talented enough to disrupt the top offenses? Yeah, I don't think that this is going to be defining for the defense. Wasn't good enough today. I think there's a much better brand of football that they can play than what they did against Detroit today. And I do think, no Jair, no Cooper, no Bullard, no Williams throughout the course of the game. I think that did really affect them in this one. But I will say this again, if they can't get there consistently and get to the quarterback, yeah, it's going to be a long day at the office for the defense more often than not. Had enough smoke and mirrors and, some good plays here and there against some not as good teams that have been able to hold teams under 20, but you get a good offense like this and you don't have your fastball, you're going to be in for hurt. And they put 34 points of hurt on that Packers defense today. So I think they can get better. I do think there's still a lot of growth left. I think there's still players who can play much better than they've been playing, but they do also need to get healthy, and Jair is such a huge part of this pass defense as well. Mary, for the youngest team in the league to hang with arguably the best offense, I take it as a win, but we have stuff to work on. Mary, I appreciate the positivity as well. Again, it is about winning and losing, right? There's no moral victories. There's no, you don't get half a point for a good loss or something like that. So it is about it, but I do think there's plenty of positives to take away from this one. And again, they're going to have to learn their lessons. They're going to have to grow from this. Hopefully this is a growing moment for this team. Did Green Bay pony up for some free agents? Or does Green? I think they'll go out and get at least one, pretty solid free agent this offseason. I don't think they're going to sit on their hands. That's for sure. I think they'll continue to draft and develop. I think we'll see another, I think probably defense heavy draft. I think they're going to bring the majority of this team back. They're going to expect growth internally, but I think you'll see at least them go out and dabble in free agency a little bit. I really do think so. Dan Gamble, all right, strikes again. Detroit 6 of 7 on 4th downs. It was really the biggest story of the game. No question. I mean, even when the one that they missed, right, was why Green Bay got back into the game. So, I mean, their 6 fourth down conversions that they had went a long way in Detroit winning this one. The one they failed was a long way in Green Bay getting back into this one. So you live by it, you die by it, but it definitely paid dividends for Dan Campbell in this one. LVN have more than one move. Hey, that one move is one more than he had just a few weeks ago. So you be thankful for that one move. No, he's more of a one-trick pony, and he wins with effort and physicality. That only gets you so far. He's going to have to continue to work on his move set. No two ways around it. You got to have a good technical set in order to win consistently in this league. LVN doesn't have it right now. I don't know how much the was it a thumb injury, finger injury affected him in this one, but we didn't see a ton from LVN, at least in first glance on this one. Hey, MLF free Jaden Reed. I'm assuming MLF is still getting dragged in the comments here a little bit. Again, I can either see the regular chat or just the super chats. We had so many super chats. I'm just in the super chat one right now. But yeah. Hopefully the timeout worked a little bit for that guy. All right. El Rey Del Taco 24, taking the best team in the league to the brink at their home, coming back from a 17-7 deficit. I'm proud of the guys. Love was dropping dimes. I think there's a lot to take away from the fact that they fought till the end, got back in this game, had an opportunity to win, came up short. Hopefully that makes them hungrier moving forward. Injuries on top of injuries, especially defensively, can Pack overcome injuries and lack of secondary depth into the playoffs. Love you, Andy from SoCal. Zach, appreciate that. I mean, hopefully the guys just get healthy, right? Like that would be ideal, but man, every team's dealing with injuries. Look what Detroit did on the defensive line today with all their guys beat up, and Aleem McNeil even going out during the course of this game. And they just kept coming at you in waves, unrelenting, just relentless, coming at you over and over and over again. There's no quit. In Green Bay in 2010, right? Probably 20 guys on IR that year, including some big time guys. Your next guys up had to step up. In this game, they were asking Isaiah McDuffie, Eric Stokes, Keisean Nixon, Zane Anderson. They're asking guys to step up and play good football. Zane Anderson, I thought first glance played well, came up with some big plays in this one. Some of the other guys did not do as well, but that is life in the NFL too. You're going to have these injuries. Your next guy up better be ready to play. Like more often than not, Green Bay has the depth usually to stay competitive. In this one, their offense did a really great job of taking advantage of some of that depth on defense, or lack thereof, I should say. Vegas wanted the Lions to win. I don't know. Maybe I'm not a big Vegas believer, but I can be naive with that stuff too. So maybe that's just me being naive. Sam, thank you for the super chat. Zach, thank you again. Andy, in your opinion, percent chances our beloved Packers make it to the NFC Championship? Realistically, it will be an NFC South or West round 1, then Lions divisional. Go Pack, go from SoCal. I'm very obviously hopeful and optimistic that they can get past that wild card round. Let's say they get the 6 seed, right? Let's say maybe Minnesota gets the 5, Green Bay gets the 6. Assuming that, I mean, you could have a Washington upset against Philly in the first round, right? So it's not impossible that Washington could go to Detroit as the 7 seed. And if Green Bay gets their win, that they could then go to, whoever wins, I don't know, maybe Minnesota. I don't know who would be else, I guess, in that, maybe Minnesota in that other game. Maybe Seattle, maybe Arizona, maybe LA, who knows? But yeah, there's a world in which, maybe it's a win against Atlanta and then a win against, maybe Minnesota on the road. And then you play Detroit in the NFC Championship. Like there's a world where that exists. Like it's always tough to say, but listen, right now, this isn't necessarily about, getting to the NFC Championship game per se. They got to work on their team for the remainder of these 4 games in the regular season. They have to find a way to win in the wild card game on the road. Will not be easy. I don't care if it's Atlanta. I don't care if it's LA. I don't care if it's Tampa. I don't care if it's Arizona, Seattle. Doesn't matter who that is. That will still be a tough game on the road, no matter what. So Green Bay's going to have to find a way to win that game on the road in the wild card. And then you probably end up facing Detroit again. And can you go beat them? I'm excited just thinking about it. I really hope we get that rematch in the divisional round. I'm dying to see it. Have to see it. My balls itch, RELAX, more players coming back for us. An extremely tough to beat team 3 times in one season. Really happy with Love. He continues to get better. I could see we really missed Dobbs. We beat them in the playoffs. Appreciate the big super chat there. My balls itch. And I love your positivity. And like I said, I'm excited for Packers Detroit round 3. Bring it on. Maybe I'm naive too on this, but Either way, I think it's going to be a phenomenal game, and I want to see if Green Bay has it in them. I don't care, of course, like how they would get there, whatever. I want Green Bay to have to go through Detroit, and it deserves to go through Detroit, right? Detroit deserves that, right? And Green Bay should have to go through them. I want to see it. I want to see Green Bay be the better team. I want to see them beat Detroit in an NFC divisional round or championship game, get past that wild card, get to Detroit. I want to see it. I want to see Green Bay win. I want to see them step up to the plate and say, we got this. That's what I want to see from this team the remainder of this year, and then go win a Super Bowl. Not that it was the sole reason, but what is your thoughts on the officials and the announcers heavily favoring the Lions the entirety of this game? I don't know. I quite frankly, I don't really care. I don't know. I just don't have a much care for it. My care is this is not an elimination game. There wasn't much on the line. My care is on Green Bay's quality of play. I think there was a lot of things they did well, a lot of things they need to clean up, and now they have to get better from it one way or the other. It's not going to really affect their season too much. Wish it would have been, a couple calls that maybe went Green Bay's way a little bit more, and wish, I don't know. Like I've said, Herbstreit and Michaels aren't my favorite. I didn't think they were super biased towards Detroit. But when you're the best team in the league, announcers and people are going to say really positive things about you. And Detroit right now is the best team, and they played better than Green Bay in this game. So maybe that was one of the reasons why. I don't know. But ultimately, I don't really care all that much. Want them to beat Detroit, to hell with a good game. Fair enough. I'm cool with that, Matthew. You really want to watch round 3 with Goff playing pitch and catch up and down the field? No, I want to see game 3, and I want to see Green Bay go beat them. That's what I want. Don't care how they do it. Let's see. Jacobs needs to touch the ball a lot more. He is the bell cow. He is healthy. Games like Detroit, ride Jacobs. I mean, they couldn't really get him going a ton either. I mean, Detroit was very aggressive in trying to stack the box and take the run away. He had 18 carries in this one. I mean, it's not nothing, right? Like that's 18 to 22 is right in that kind of sweet spot range. I mean, yeah, sure. Maybe you'd get them to 25 or whatever, but I mean, he had 18 carries, only 66 yards, 3.7 yard average. So I thought Detroit did a pretty good job of managing Josh Jacobs as good as possible. Again, as far as receptions in this game, I think you would have loved, we talked about it, right? You want Kraft, Jacobs, and Reed, the ones that are touching the ball. Kraft gets 3 catches on 5 targets. Reed gets no catches on 1 target. Jacobs gets no targets in the passing game. You would have liked to seen those guys targeted a little bit more. Like I said, Green Bay never really could convert third downs on offense, only 1 of 5. They didn't have the ball a ton. It was either short fields or, some explosive plays. And with that, you don't get a ton of targets in the game. I mean, Jordan had 12 completions. So when you only have 12 completions in a game, you're not going to end up with a lot of targets for all the people that you want. And that was kind of the outcome in this one. Who is a scarier trap game, Seahawks or Saints? Did I spell scarier right? Should I have one more IPA? You should definitely have one more IPA, Zach. Go Pack, go. I don't think there's any trap games the rest of the way. I mean, you just need to win 1 or 2 games to get in the playoffs. Probably just one more, quite frankly. I'm not really concerned about wins or losses. I'm more concerned about this team just going out and finding ways to play better football. That shows me that they can go to the playoffs and make some sort of run. I would like to see them go 4-0 the rest of the way. Like, just quite frankly, like go out and show the world that, like, hey, yeah, we lost to Detroit, but we're still a really good team. Really would like to see them beat Minnesota on the road, getting to get a little bit of proof that they can go on the road and win tough games. But this to me is more about progress the rest of this way in these last 4 games, showing those signs that they can be a better team. Now, with that, you would hopefully get wins too, but you're not playing much more for seeding. You're playing to be the best team that you can in that wild card game, and then moving forward after that. So get in the playoffs first, try to get as best of a seed as you possibly can, find a way to play your best football, and then go in the wild card and take it one step at a time after that. All right, friends, I've got a very long night ahead of me. I still have to rewatch the game, put together a podcast, put together a radio show for tomorrow, be up at 8 a.m. For the radio show. So it's going to be a very long night. So I think we maybe just got 2 super chats that just came in. So I'm going to get to those and then I'm going to get out of here. R.R. Smith, salute. The 4th down conversions allowed were throwdown moments that we failed on when it mattered. Someday we'll be the violent team. There were moments of violence in this game from Green Bay. There were moments and signs that they could hang. But like I said, Detroit's just a little step ahead right now. That the little step ahead is what gets you 3 points ahead in the win column or in the score column. And they won by 3. Paul Farrington Show mentioned they might do a live with you sometime. I hope that is true. I haven't talked to them at all. I honestly don't know much about them, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know anything about that, but who knows? Maybe someday. I am new to this super chat and I love it. Started Reed over Pickens in fantasy. Bummer. Would do it again for a Packers W. Love you, Andy, Zach. I appreciate all the super chats. Thank you so much for that. 62 super chats in this today. I can't thank you guys enough for that and all the support. You're the absolute best. Tough one. You wish they could have won. Really fun game. We're on to Seattle. You got 4 games left in the regular season to play your best. Not your best. You're close to best football. Best football starts in January. And then we'll see what Green Bay can do. One step at a time from here. Detroit, the better team. Tip your cap. A lot of season left. Green Bay still can get in this thing. You never know what's going to happen come playoff time. It's the madness and the beauty of the NFL. There's a really, really good team hidden in Green Bay there somewhere. They haven't quite figured it out yet. The rest of the NFL better hope that they don't by the time the playoffs come around, because if they do, they're going to be a very scary team to play against. Enjoy your night, everyone. Make sure to check out the show tomorrow. I'll do a recap of everything once I rewatch the game. Pack-A-Day radio show at 8 a.m. For those of you in Milwaukee, you can listen on thefanmilwaukee.com. I'll see you all very soon. Enjoy your evening. Until next time. And as always, go Pack Go.